Welcome to the Lingua Loom. Have you ever stumbled upon a manuscript that was never meant to be published, yet somehow became powerful enough to reshape an entire field? Imagine this. A young Noam Chomsky, in the early 1950s, quietly writing a dense, mathematical manuscript, not for the world, not for fame, not even for immediate publication. Just an attempt to understand the deep logic behind human language. That manuscript was the logical structure of linguistic theory, LSLT. It sat on shelves. It was rejected. Then it slipped into the academic underground, copied on microfilm, passed from one curious scholar to another, whispered about like a secret treasure. But here's the astonishing part. Even without being published, its ideas reshaped modern linguistics. Inside it were the early seeds of everything we study today: how grammar works, why transformations matter, the beginnings of competence, deep and surface structures, and the earliest hints of universal grammar. Reading LSLT feels like stepping back in time, to the moment when a revolution was quietly being born. A manuscript hidden for 20 years. And yet, powerful enough to change how we think about human language forever. Let's first discuss that why actually Chomsky wrote LSLT. In the 1950s, linguistics looked very different from what we study today. The field was dominated by American structuralism, a tradition focused on describing language, not explaining the mind behind it. Structuralists spent their time cataloging sounds, morphemes, word patterns, sentence types. Their method was purely surface level: segment, substitute, classify. For them, the sentence, "the cat chased the mouse," and "the dog chased the ball," were simply two separate items in a long list of patterns. But a young Noam Chomsky saw a problem. Humans can produce infinite sentences, even ones they have never heard before. So how could linguistics stop at just describing sentences? This is where Chomsky broke from structuralism. Instead of looking only at utterances, he asked a deeper question. What mental rules allow humans to generate an unlimited number of sentences from limited input? Where a structuralist saw two unrelated facts, Chomsky saw a rule. S consists of NP plus VP. A single mental structure capable of generating countless sentences. While analyzing Hebrew morphology and rule ordering, he realized something important. Structuralism could tell us what speakers say. But it could never explain how the mind creates language. That dissatisfaction became the spark. Between 1955 and 1956, working mostly in isolation, Chomsky wrote a massive manuscript, The Logical Structure of Linguistic Theory, LSLT. It was his attempt to formalize mental grammar, the hidden system of rules and computations that makes creativity in language possible. LSLT wasn't just another linguistic description. It was the beginning of a revolution, a shift from studying language as behavior to studying language as a cognitive system. And that's how LSLT was born, out of a young scholar's refusal to accept descriptions when the real mystery was the mind behind them. Let's first discuss the three pillars of LSLT. First, language. Language is an infinite set of sentences from a finite set of words. Example: I eat apples. I eat apples every morning. And I eat apples every morning before school while listening to music. All generated from the same underlying rules. Second, grammar. A grammar is not a description or a list. It is a finite system of generative rules that creates sentences, assigns structural descriptions, defines relations between structures. This is where the word generative comes from. Third, structure. To know a language is to know the structure of its sentences, not just the surface form, but the hidden architecture. This is the key point. Grammar exists in the mind. Not in behavior. Not in texts. Not in corpora. It's in humans. Now let's discuss levels of representation. Chomsky proposed multi-level representations, L markers. Phonetics, which is actual sounds produced. Phonemics, which is abstract sound units. Morphemics are smallest meaningful units. Morphophonemics are changes when morphemes combine. Words are lexicon items. Syntactic categories like NP, VP, etc. Phrase structure is hierarchical skeleton. Transformations are rules modifying structure like active to passive. Now let's discuss competence versus performance. Although Chomsky didn't formally call it competence, yet LSLT sets the foundation. Competence, knowledge, is mental grammar, rules stored in mind. Performance, speech, is actual utterances, affected by memory or distractions. Example: competence, the dog is barking, is grammatical. Performance, the dog is, barking loudly. Now let's discuss, phrase structure alone isn't enough. Phrase structure rules give basic skeletons, but can't form questions. You will eat apples. 2. Will you eat apples? Can't form passives. The cat chased the mouse. 2. The mouse was chased by the cat. Can't handle embedded clauses. The cat that the dog chased ran away. This motivated transformations. Now let's discuss transformations. Transformations are rules modifying underlying structures into surface forms. Examples: passive transformation. Input: the cat chased the mouse. Output: the mouse was chased by the cat. Question formation. Input: you will eat apples. Output: will you eat apples? Relative clause embedding. Input: the dog chased the cat. Output: the cat that the dog chased ran away. P marker is phrase structure, skeleton, T marker is transformation history. This sets foundation for deep versus surface structures in later work. Now let's look at mathematical or formal foundations. LSLT formalizes grammar in mathematical terms. Grammar is a set of rules or functions mapping underlying structures to surface structures. Recursion allows infinite sentences from finite rules. Example of recursion: I think that he knows that she left before noon. Each bracket is a recursive embedded clause. Simplified intuition. Grammar is a machine that inputs a sentence skeleton and outputs all possible grammatical sentences. Later minimalist and GB frameworks formalized this more strictly. Now let's discuss Chomsky's critique of statistical models. Chomsky argues that statistical or probabilistic models, like Markov chains, cannot capture long-distance dependencies, cannot produce structure-dependent rules, fail to model recursion, depend on surface frequencies, confuse performance with competence. Example: is the man who is tall coming? A statistical model might transform it incorrectly because it doesn't understand structure, only linear patterns. This is Chomsky's early argument against purely probabilistic approaches, an argument that returns in modern debates about AI language models. Now let's discuss language acquisition and innateness. Chomsky asks, how do children master complex grammar from incomplete, noisy input? He argues, children receive finite data. Children learn rapidly from limited data. They still construct infinite grammars. They have internal constraints. Learning is guided by an initial state. This becomes the seed of universal grammar. Principles and parameters. Modern generative linguistics. Now let's discuss evaluation or selection of grammar. Mind prefers grammars that are simple, having minimal rules; general, that cover many sentences; elegant, which aligns with intuition; predictive, that avoids exceptions. Example: multiple grammars could produce I eat apples, which is the simplest, most general one, is chosen by the mind. The autobiographical part. How Chomsky reached this point. Chomsky explains that he began from Harris structuralism. He studied Hebrew morphology. Rule ordering and morphophonemics fascinated him, but structural methods felt limited. So he proposed recursive rules. He wrote LSLT in isolation. He worked with Halley, Goodman, Harris, Jakobson. The manuscript was rejected at first. Syntactic Structures, 1957, grew out of LSLT. The rest is history. Now let's look at that. Why LSLT still matters. LSLT is not polished. It's not updated, but it is the seed from which modern syntax grew. It introduced generative grammar transformations, structural descriptions, evaluation procedures, the idea of grammar as mental, the roots of universal grammar. Understanding LSLT means understanding the beginning of modern linguistics. Visit our website for amazing related information. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share.